Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. As you can see, representing the ninja side of things. That's why we have Sasuke here. Although I'd say he's far more on the Storm Shadow side of things. Although maybe we'll get into that in spoilers. Maybe not. I like the movie. It was a good popcorn flick. It was G.I. Joe. So I mean, if you're going to this expecting cinema, artistic cinema, that's like expecting to go to see Transformers or Ninja Turtles and seeing like the pièce de resistance of artistic film, and so like you're not gonna get that. Like you can read the comics and you probably will. Like there's some stuff where you're just like, wow, that's deep, but Hollywood doesn't care. They'll be like, oh, that's famous, put it up there. So that's pretty much what you should expect when it comes to GI Joe. Oddly enough, GI Joe, I think it's okay to have it that way and it works. They do have some more serious stuff comic wise, but G.I. Joe is probably the one thing where I'm like, it can be super campy and still be exactly what it's always meant to be. Because especially if you're going off of like the old cartoon, you can totally have that. You can have it be campy, popcorn, action flick, and it's like, yeah, that works. That totally works. So I like the movie. It's considered the best of the G.I. Joe films. Super low bar. Although I will say the second movie, which I feel like I've only watched like two reviews so far. I feel like so many people have forgotten about the second movie. The second movie is actually pretty decent. The first one is pretty much garbage, but the second movie, where they kill everyone from the first movie except for Snake Eyes, because that's Snake Eyes. The second movie is actually pretty sick, and also, surprise, surprise, has a giant focus on Snake Eyes. So if you want more Snake Eyes, and you were like, this movie was pretty nice, you can actually watch G.I. Joe Retaliation, which I believe is the name of the sequel. And you might not hate it. Like they do the whole thing. Like this movie is like it's not really in the second movie, but they go to his clan and all that stuff where they talk about like his lineage and all the stuff with Storm Shadow. That's all actually in the second movie, if I'm not mistaken. They do like I'm pretty sure they do like the original origin of Snake Eyes in that. And this, oddly enough, being the origin of Snake Eyes, I think what they kind of went full Hollywood with it, where it was like, okay, well, we got to change it up because Snake Eyes doesn't speak, so he's kind of has to talk. So we got to change that up, and they changed up a whole lot. They pretty much changed the whole backstory of the entire character, and him not talking and all that stuff. They don't even get into that, which I could actually see them doing if this continues. I honestly I kind of hope it does because I think this was decent enough to where it was like that wasn't. It's not a horrible movie, but there's like one stretch where it's horrible, and I'll get into that for sure. But it's not a horrible movie, and I'm like, I would like to see how they handle this version of the GI Joe universe. I'd love to see how they play that, especially going off of this being like the starting line of the rest of that series, where it's like, okay, they kind of established that, like in small bits and pieces, it's a very very loose GI Joe film. Like that's why it's Snake Eyes, a GI Joe origin, because GI Joe is like barely in it. Like they reference GI Joe, they reference Cobra, and it seems going forward. Of course, it will branch into classic GI Joe and stuff. And who knows if they'll do other origin films. But I was like, the way they ended this, I was like, I'd like to see it, especially with this new version of the origin, kind of centering on Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. So I like that element. I thought it was pretty cool, and I'll get into some of the deeper stuff with that I know some people don't like, and I was kind of in the middle on it, but ultimately I like it just because it was so different. But it was also very different from the comics and even the cartoon, anything really his origin wise. But I personally was okay with it. I thought it was pretty interesting. They made things far less hero villain, and it was definitely more like, I don't know, like I'm not sure I'm really on the side that I would normally be. I don't think anybody would be watching this movie, especially if you don't know the characters. So I'll get into that, of course, in spoilers. But to get into the one thing that is absolutely horrible in this film, which fortunately does not play the entire film, it's mostly like the first two big fight scenes, or really, actually, the first two. The first fight scene is just like the introductory fight scene, like, oh, it's a fight scene to show like he fights. The second fight scene is actually like the first set piece fight, and unfortunately, somebody I don't know what was happening where they were like, hey, we're gonna have this amazing choreography, because you can tell that the people put in the work. Like Andrew Koji, who plays Tommy slash Storm Shadow, I know he can fight. I've seen him in the show Warrior, and he's sick. Like he can do some real stuff. Like that show is amazing. You should watch Warrior, by the way, if you have not seen Warrior. It is perfection. If you like martial arts, period. If you like anything, you should just watch Warrior. That's how good it is. If you like existing, you should watch Warrior. It's that good. So I knew he could fight, and they have the dude from the raid, which I wish I could remember his name. I've seen him in way more stuff than the raid, but obviously, like most people, that was the first time I was really introduced to him. So the guy from the raid, he was in this too, and I was like, okay, there are at least two people in this that I know can fight well. Henry Golding, who plays Snake Eyes, I wasn't familiar with him, but he seems like he knows what he's doing as well based on the action in it. And I'm like, okay, The choreography in here, you can tell, is really good. They have hand-to-hand stuff. They have a buttload of sword combat. You know, a bunch of ninjas going around with swords. They're more samurai than ninja, really. And I was like, the swordplay in this is good. It was definitely on that very good, like, fantasy movie level where I'm like, you can't really move that fast holding even a single katana, let alone two. You can't just be, you can't, you know, like, some people are really good like that, but it was definitely that movie style where I'm like, you know, realism, and it's like, that's like just good enough to be like kind of realistic, but they aren't doing stuff that's too over the top. It was really good. It was really well done. And fortunately, it was okay at the end. But in the beginning, the shaky cam was so shaky, you could not really follow the action. The first fight scene was simple enough because it was literally just two people. Two people fought. It was actually okay. It was too much shaky cam even in the very beginning. But I was like, okay, it's the first fight. I can kind of be okay with it because it was literally like, oh, it's a brawler, no holds bar. It was literally the type of fight where people throw weapons into the arena. And I was like, okay, it's still too shaky. But I was like, shaky cam for this, I can handle that because it kind of fits the aesthetic of the actual fight. Then they get to the first set piece fight. And there's probably a total of like 20 people. It's full on like classic martial arts movie. Like, there's no way they should really get out of this situation type stuff. And you can't really tell what's happening during some of those scenes because they're either shaking way too much or sometimes they're just too close. Oddly enough, like, you wouldn't think that would ever be an issue, but sometimes they're just too close. I'm like, there's moments where it's like, you shouldn't be this close to a person that is not only using a weapon, but is fighting two other people who are also using weapons. You shouldn't be this close to one person. So, because it kind of just makes it look like they're just doing this. Like, you can't see any of the action. They're just kind of spinning in the air doing nothing. And that's kind of how it feels like. It's very few and far between that it's like that, where it's that close. And also, some of the shots are so shaky, you probably can't even tell they're only showing one person, honestly. But it doesn't get better. Thank goodness. Because I was super worried. Like, I knew that going in, I'd watched like 2 reviews where both people were like, the shaky cam is atrocious. And thank goodness, after the first set piece fight, which it's a real shame, I know based on having seen a lot of martial arts movies, I could just tell. I was like, this is a really good fight. You just can't really see it well enough. Like, I'm sure the behind the scenes stuff will make the fights look better than the actual movie does, because we're forced into like this one position where it's just way too close and just moving way too much. It's not even moving where it's like, oh, it's following this person and it's sticking on them. It's so close. It's like, it's almost just sticking to their face. Like I said, it's kind of like their arms are moving and you know they're fighting people because when they block or something, someone shows up behind them in the background. But it's like, I just pull the camera back, like just a little. Like, they could have just set the camera where my camera is, and there's like no movement. The fight scenes would have looked better than they actually did in the movie, and that's a shame to say. At least the first 2 fights, for sure, they do get better as it goes on. So I was happy. I'm happy that I can at least say that you can see the action as it progresses throughout the film. The fight scenes that happen, you can actually see, and I was like, thank goodness. They I don't know if they switched people or what the deal was, but I'm telling you, those first 2 fights, especially that first set piece, way too many people to have shaky cam. I don't know. Like, unfortunately, the people that clearly knew what they were doing action-wise didn't have the power to say, like, hey, this is how we film martial arts movies, so you should listen to us. Because I know the people fighting knew what they were doing. The camera person clearly did not. Whoever was in charge of visuals, like that little lineage of people, they don't know martial arts movies. And that was very apparent from those first 2 fights. Like, you don't know how to film action. That's super clear. But like I said, fortunately, it does get better. But that first fight, for sure, I was just like, whoa. I don't know if it was because I was tired or it's been a minute since I've seen shaky cam that hardcore in the theaters. But I was like, I never get bothered by shaking. I saw the movie Hardcore Henry. That whole movie is first person. And I was like, I didn't get dizzy once watching that film. And I think I was like 15 minutes into this movie. And I was like, dude, they're just moving. They're just following characters sometimes talking. And they were doing shaky cam so hard. I was like, how are you shaking the camera this much? And you're just following the dude. Like, it was like someone literally just had this. Like, when you zoom a camera in all the way and you can see like the most minute shaking, that's what it looked like sometimes. I was like, there's no way you're zoomed in that hard, and I shouldn't see like the minute movements. It was just like them breathing was like, that's what it looked like. I like, it's crazy. There's literally a scene where a character is just walking towards the camera. I don't even understand how they didn't have a rig or something to just keep it steady. Just walk forward. Why did you just give them a free camera to walk? And clearly this person can't walk steady at all. Because I'm like, once again, they must have been super zoomed in. Because there's no reason that there should be that much sway in the camera. And all you're doing is just walking towards the person. It's like, boom, and you turn the camera as they past you. That's it. It was so ridiculous. But Fortunately, that's only the beginning. Everything else is fine. It's all good. The action is good. The story is very interesting. They definitely changed some stuff. I personally like it, but all in all, I would say you should definitely check it out. We're gonna get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, I say check it out. I think it's worth seeing. It's apparently going to be on the Paramount subscription service in like 45 days. I don't think anybody really has that, but you might be able to get a free trial and check it out then if you want to wait. But I'd say it's worth it, especially if you like ninja stuff and samurai. It actually takes place in Japan, by the way. I didn't think it did, if I'm being totally honest. The movie's legitimately like in Japan. They literally show some stuff from like the robot restaurant, which I went to when I went to Tokyo so long ago. But they show some stuff and it's like, oh, this is like legit in Japan. I didn't really realize. Most movies, especially if it's a Hollywood movie, it's like, yeah, we're going to my family in Japan, and then it's like they're in Japan, just like they're anywhere. It's like, yeah, they're totally in that place. But it was actually in Japan. I was like, oh, I'm actually watching a movie that was legitimately filmed in Japan. I was like, I've seen some of the things that they went past. I was like, okay, that's cool. I just wasn't expecting it because, like, especially with it being G.I. Joe, I was like, yeah, they're gonna go to Japan for what 2.5 minutes, and then something's gonna happen, and then they fight, in different places. They were in Japan the whole time, and I was like, oh, sweet. They actually went to Japan, and it was just in Japan. So there you go. That was just like a random thing where I was like, oh, that's nice. I like seeing Hollywood movies where they actually film in other locations, and it's not just like, oh, that's they claim to be in that place, but they're really somewhere else. And that was just a personal thing. I was like, oh, that's cool. They're actually in Japan the whole time. So that was sweet to me. But getting into spoilers, I know some people didn't really like the fact that Snake Eyes was kind of the bad guy in this. He kind of was, but he kind of wasn't, and that was personally why I enjoyed it. I do think they went a little crazy with the Storm Shadow stuff at the very end, where it was like, that's effed up. Like, I was actually on his, I think most people were, really, because it was like, they go through the whole thing. He trusts a dude that he shouldn't have trusted. So yes, he screwed up there without a doubt. And then they go through the process of Snake Eyes betraying them and stuff like that. Even before that, when he gets busted, the whole snake thing, it was like, the reason I failed is because I wanted to kill this person, which once again, if he actually wanted to kill that dude, he probably could have told the guy that has like a super mega army, and they could have found a way, like if his cousin who is like ousted from the family could do it, I'm sure he could just be like, no problem, dude, like we're brothers now, like F my cousin, I'll help you out. I'll kill him and we'll save the dude. We'll save the dude from my cousin, and then you can kill him. They probably could have done that, honestly, but it wouldn't. It wouldn't have been the movie. But they go through and showing that first moment of betrayal. I was like, I didn't see that coming. Like, it actually surprised me. I was like, I was not expecting this. I knew that his cousin was gonna come back in the movie because I'm like, oh, they had that fight and he basically lost. Like, Storm Shadow lost. And I was like, okay, he's like the end game boss fight type dude. He's gonna come back in the movie. They'll fight because he's gonna do something and come back. I didn't expect Snake Eyes to be a part of that plan, so that surprised me. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And he wasn't doing it because it was just like, whatever. It was literally because he had his vengeance, and he was like, I want to kill the man that killed my father. So I was like, man, I wasn't expecting that. And Storm Shadow was just like, yo, he saved my life, and like, I trust this dude like 110%. Like, there's no way I'm wrong. And he was super wrong. And hey, it is what it is. I was surprised the way that it went, though, because Snake Eyes went through the whole thing. He stole the jewel and everything. And then when he found out that the guy that killed his dad was a part of Cobra, who he just helped out because he helped Storm Shadow's cousin, who was eventually going to give the jewel to Baroness, who my girlfriend kept saying, which she was totally right. I didn't see it when I first saw the trailers, but she was like, she looks like Bayonetta. She is not wrong at all. Like, she looked like Bayonetta, and I was like, they'll never make a live action Bayonetta because you just can't do this stuff. It wouldn't work live action, but they do a bunch of stuff that shouldn't work. But I was like, yeah, if they ever did Bayonetta, the actress who was Baroness, without a doubt, should be Bayonetta. Because I was just like, yeah, they had like the wig they had on there and everything. I was like, that is Bayonetta. She even had like the glasses weren't exactly the same, but they were pretty close. They were like angled glasses. I was like, that's Bayonetta. That's Bayonetta. And I'm okay with that because I love Bayonetta. But going through the movie, Snake Eyes, he eventually steals the jewel. They introduce magic for sure, which I knew was in it because in the trailer they show the scene where he like blows up the top of the castle, and I was just like, I assumed it was magic. I was like, I know they do some crazy tech in G.I. Joe, but I was like, he just pointed and it blew up. I'm like, I don't think that's tech. So it was full on magic, which I'm okay with because it's G.I. Joe. I'm like, whatever, dude. But he does all that, betrays them. Storm Shadow is appropriately pissed. And so he does all this stuff. He finds out the dude is actually Cobra, who he just helped out. And he was like, dang, I made a mistake. I'm like, it's a little late for that, buddy. And so he goes in, he does try to help him. They do the motorcycle scene and everything. And the one woman, I can't think of her name. But the other person who was brought into the clan who wasn't originally born into it, she ends up having this really weird bond where it was like she kind of falls for him, but it was like he talked about how his dad died and stuff, and she kind of fell for that, even though that was her exact situation. And I guess that's why they sort of bonded. And so she started to trust him a little bit, even though she didn't 100% because she was the one that found him when he stole the jewel. And she also didn't really kill him. She stabbed him, but then clearly she was hesitating to do it and stuff. So I was like, I don't really like that part. I was like, because it was clear that they made it like slightly romantic. And I was like, if she just trusted him, was just like, I understand where you're coming from, but don't F up. And it was just more of a friendly thing instead of like it led into a pseudo romance type thing. I would have liked it more because it seemed like that's what it was doing at first, where it was just like I thought she was just he was gonna gain her trust and be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from because that's where I came from. I didn't think that was suddenly gonna be like, oh, she abandoned, like, you know, like she kicks the snake and stuff, and it was just like they let him live, and like they just kind of shut the whole system down when she saved his life, and it was just like, okay, cool. And then he gets kicked out and all this other stuff. And Storm Shadow, once again, appropriately pissed, was like, you should have told me. Like, we were going to be brothers. And they do the blood bond thing and everything. Storm Shadow, I'm kind of on that dude's side. It comes all the way down to the end. Snake Eyes lied to them in the beginning, was betraying them the whole effing time. Literally got who knows how many people killed. Like, not just, oh, they got stabbed. They got eviscerated. They were, like, blasted by a magic dragon gem. Actually, it was a magic sun gem. And literally just burst into flames. Dude's just coming in, like, hitting people like it's nothing. And they're like, oh, we like, our whole, I understand the vow. I do. But they also let Snake Eyes come in. And they were like, okay, you know, you are forgiven. Like, he technically passes the test at the very end. And he works to help them out or what, you know, whatever. Like, he learned the error of his way, so they're kind of okay with him. But I'm like, in a sense, they did technically say that he wasn't banished from the clan. Like, it was just, you can't lead. So it was kind of like they had to push him into the full villain mode. But I was like, I kind of get it. I understand, like, everything that just happened. He's betrayed. Like, I understand. He was like, you know, you promised me your life. The next time I see you, I'm going to take it. And I was like, that totally tracks. He got a bunch of your friends killed. Like, your clan was destroyed. Technically, because of what everything Snake Eyes did. That's the only reason Storm Shadow was led to that point of rage where he, like, wanted to kill his cousin. Because initially, and they show that, like, he was kind to him. He was like, he banished him because he didn't want to kill his family. And it was like, ever since then, he's just been trying to, you know, kill me and, rule the clan, like, destroy everything. And it was just like, that's kind of effed up on the Storm Shadow side of things. But has to be the villain. And we'll see how they play it in the next one. It seems like, I wouldn't mind it if they did do like 3 sort of Snake Eyes movies and just kept implementing more and more G.I. Joe. Because I think they could do better and better each time. And, you know, the sequel would be them, you know, him trying to get into the whole thing. Or, you know, the two of them trying to bond, like Snake Eyes trying to get Storm Shadow back. Storm Shadow officially joining Cobra and, you know, going into that whole spiel. So I'd like to see a sequel, honestly. I would love to see a sequel. I would love it if the camera was steady the whole way through. It also won't be 100% martial arts movie, but they can still do great action, so I'm okay with that, even if they start adding the guns. I love the references. They had like a super quick reference where I'm pretty sure Snake Eyes was talking to Scarlet, and he was like, yo, Joe. Like, when they were doing the very weird lineup thing at the end where, like, they had, like, the matriarch of the clan, she was walking down, and she would keep looking. Like, she would walk down and be like, and, like, kind of look at someone, and then she would look over and smile at somebody, and they kept, like, filing in. And I was like, this shot is too long, and it's the very classic, like, just people just walking in, like, she was just walking down the line, and more people just kept coming out, and I was like, this lasting too long, and it looks weird. But I like the way they did it. They had the whole lineup of characters. Baroness was joining them for a minute. She had the one F-bomb in the PG-13 film. I was like, very appropriate for her to have that. They had the Uzis for Scarlet. They had Snake Eyes use his gun as well. Like, he had the gun and the katana in one hand. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. They show those little moments where it's like, those are their iconic weapons, and they actually did it. So little stuff like that I actually kind of enjoyed. I didn't mind that they didn't show that much of the G.I. Joe because it was Snake Eyes, and all I really wanted was ninjas and samurai anyway. But all in all, I kind of liked it. I liked the gray tone of Snake Eyes was kind of the bad guy, but at the same time, it was just that rage that he had. Like, that was kind of the point, was like, it was his pure rage that led him to do something so horrible. Like, his whole thing was that he wasn't a killer, but he got to that one moment, and not only did he not kill the guy because he realized, like, holy crap, I screwed up, but him going to the person that he was going to kill, doing everything he did, actually got a bunch of other people killed. Like, he is a killer at this point. And not just because he fought back at the end. Like, they were just wiping people out, by the way. For PG-13, they were killing everybody at the end of this movie, which was kind of cool. I was like, I didn't think of that until I saw a review about it. And I was like, they do kill a buttload of people at the end of this movie. Like, a ridiculous amount. But I enjoyed it. All in all, I thought it was a good film. Just steady. It's martial arts. You can just pull back, let the people do their thing. Because it looks good. You just can't really tell. I'm sure in the behind-the-scenes shots, we'll see that the action is better. In that first one, at least. But I enjoyed it altogether. We'll love to know your thoughts on it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, should we have a sequel? Should we have more origins? Maybe this one will just switch over to focus on Storm Shadow. I would not hate that, actually. I'd like to see, if it focused on Storm Shadow, that means it would focus on Cobra. And I'd actually like to see that. I'd love to see a movie where it focuses on Cobra instead of G.I. Joe, and then maybe the third movie could actually be G.I. Joe. Like, they could still go back and forth, but the main focus could be Storm Shadow. I think that'd be really cool. So I'd like to see a sequel, even if it's not specifically that. I'd love to see a sequel. I think they did a cool job with this. Popcorn flick. It did what I was hoping for it to do, just more shaky cam. And I think they could do better in the sequel. So I kind of want to see what comes next. I definitely think that they could do better, and I hope that they do. I hope we get a sequel. I hope it makes enough money. But I'd like to see another one. Like I said, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.